All right, everybody. This is the Digital Craft, the radio show. I feel like I should be talking about this in a very exciting voice because this is an intro with intro music. I should talk about being an underground bunker or being amazing or being at the top of Mount Rushmore or Mount something. But really, we're just going to do a quick break in the music, and then we're going to come in with a subtle, poorly looped track. This is going to get us a little more comfortable towards the topics we're talking about, which is computers, internet, websites, graphic design, programming, music. And this is the start of the show and the end of the intro.
So the first attempt at doing a radio show today failed. The theme music failed, and then after that I fiddled with settings, and then the voice failed. So we have topics today. They're written on my piece of paper, which means they're fact. We're going to stick to what I was talking about earlier, maybe change it up a little bit, but we're going to be back to the regular format, so to speak. Still reusing some of the music we already have. However, I will note that I'm in the works with a local actual radio station here who does a program called Meet the Music, hosted by none other than Julia Meek, which people would know around here, which most of us local bands have played her show at least once, if not twice. And they have this huge bank of music, local music, and we're working on a deal, hopefully, to where we can have access to that bank so we don't have to keep playing the same music over and over. As much as I love promoting my friends' bands and my own bands, it would be nice to change it up a little bit. But I also need to have that break to catch my breath anyways, so the music is really helpful. And this will help from having to do pre-recorded shows, so I don't have to edit out all the breathing and coughing and all the fun stuff that happens when you're live. So, first things first, news. The news has changed a little bit since the first attempt at doing this show, which was like, I don't know, an hour or so ago. I went ahead and re-recorded or not re-recorded, but I started up the Dynamic series again, which people have been waiting for a very long time. In fact, I've already done 2 episodes, or lessons, that is. And lesson 18 is already up. Lesson 19 is rendering as we speak. We're at about 24.2%, so I'm hoping by the time this show is over, I can upload it and all will be good. We will have double, triple rainbows everywhere, and everybody will be happy. So, let's hope for that. At least a single rainbow. So, on this piece of paper, that is fact, radio show number 12. Hopefully we'll broadcast before the day is over, because I wrote down 2/1/2013. So, I don't want to be a liar. First note, Dynamic series, I've already talked about that. We chose a WYSIWYG, we're going to go with Redactor. Redactor is not necessarily free, but there's a free trial, and you can continue to use it. I'm saying that, but technically you're supposed to stop using it after 30 days. I just say, if you're going to use it for something that makes you money, pay for it. It's the right thing to do. I want to talk a little bit about Windows 8 and Surface. Just my second look, maybe third look at it. That's more of a side note if I get to it. But more importantly, the topic of the day is Freelance Client Management and how to make sure that you... we've talked a bit about it before about keeping control of a client. But now I want to talk more about keeping control of your time and money and making sure that you don't get screwed over and so the client doesn't get screwed over. And throughout this broadcast, it'll probably give the notion that I think client are the enemy which I don't. You have to find a happy medium between the two, between the relationship. It has to be a mutual relationship, otherwise it will fail, or most likely fail at some point. And you don't want that, especially as a freelancer, contract worker in general. If that communication, if that relationship breaks down, you are out a client. You are out referrals. You are out of business sometimes. So we don't want that. But what we also don't want is you going broke, because you going broke puts you on the other side. You are the unhappy person. You are the one who is unhappy with the relationship, the client, the project, and everything, and we don't want that either. So I have 3 points here. They're going to coincide with the 3 segments between the musical breaks. The first point would be deposits. Now, most of us use deposits. If you have any inkling on how this all works, let's just do a scenario. I'm going to do a website. I'll make the dollar figure kind of low, but let's say we're going to do a website for $1,000. Now, everybody has their own way of doing deposits, their own way of deciding what the right number is for a deposit. I used to do 30%. Now I do 50%. One thing I've noticed is that if something is going to go bad, it generally happens midway through. And I don't want things to go bad. Nobody does. But some people, or most times, if something's going to go bad, it tends to happen around that time. So why do I say 50%? So in this case of $1,000 with a $500 deposit, say the project's going to last a month. Midway through the month, couple weeks in, client's unhappy. And whether they're unhappy because they didn't like what you did, or whatever, as long as you didn't do anything wrong, that deposit's still yours. At least, hopefully, you put it in a contract, or at least you verbally said it. I mean, contracts are better, but at least it was very clear that the $500 they put down is yours. That is your safety net in case the client decides, 1, I don't like you, 2, I don't like the work you're doing, 3, I found a better deal somewhere else. That in no way means that you should forfeit that $500, because if you did your job right, you worked for 2 weeks, you deserve that money. That is your money. Hold strong on that. Now, if you did not follow the instructions of the client, if you did something completely different, or you didn't do anything at all, technically, if there's a contract or even a verbal agreement, the money's still yours, but at that point you need to make a business decision, a relations decision, and decide, okay, do I do damage control? Do I try to salvage this client? Or do I take their money? And that's more of a moral issue with you. Do you want to totally tarnish this relationship, lose the client? That can happen if you're the one who is at fault and you try to take this non-refundable deposit and run. Now, on the other side, if you did everything right, you took the input that the client gave you, you did everything as far as they told you, which a lot of times they don't tell you much. So there is a good chance that midway through, there's going to be some changes, some discrepancy between what they wanted and what you did. That is not your fault. If you did what you want, or what you were supposed to do to their specifications, you deserve that money. Now, on that note, in order to salvage that, because a lot of times what will happen is, $500, while that's low in the web world, if you're going to do an entire website, that's a lot of money to the client. It's also a lot of money to you. Whether you charge $5,000 for a website normally, $500 is still a lot of money for both parties. But as a freelancer, there's a good chance that you don't have $500 laying around. You paid your bills, you upgraded your software, you upgraded your computers, whatever. You fed your kids, you fed your dogs, you fed your cats, whatever you got. The money's probably gone. You might still have some money from another client. But anyway, point being that money is yours. You did the work. Now, where the problem comes in is even if you did the work, do you have anything to show for it? If that client decides, I don't like this idea, I'm going to take you to small claims court. How do you combat that? How do you take that letter that you get in the mail from their attorney and confidently set it down and go, whatever, I'll show up? Well, the way you do that, and sadly, I have to admit, I've been to small claims court. I haven't lost yet. But because these things happen, because there's a miscommunication between clients or misunderstanding between clients and contract workers, this happens. But what I do is I make sure I save every single little thing I do, whether it be a revision, whether it be a blank canvas, whatever I have done, I save, I export, I have copies of. I keep copies of emails, texts. I avoid phone calls. One, I don't know. It's part of my personality. I hate talking on the phone. I like talking to my mother and my family on the phone, my wife, my kids. But when it comes to clients, no offense to the clients, but it's a waste of time. It gets into too personal, and before you know it, you've spent an hour talking to them. Now, that makes me sound very, I don't even know what it makes it sound like, but I don't mean it the way it sounds. From a business point of view, get the information, document it, move on. And that's why emails and texts, mostly emails, are great, because you have a list of just a full conversation that is time-stamped, dated. You know what you were supposed to do, what you did do, and what they want. And as long as you can match that up with what you've already done, then you have done $500 worth of work. That money is yours. And if you walk into any small claims court, I mean, I have to preface that I can't speak for every attorney you're going to talk to when you go into small claims court, whether anybody knows how that works. You basically walk into the court, you sit down at a cubicle with an attorney. Sometimes the client's there, sometimes they're not, and you work out a deal. And if you have all this information, there is no deal. Don't settle on a deal. Show them. What I've done in the past is I go in there, I take a tablet, I have all the comps on the tablet, I swipe through them, show them, this is what I did, this is what I did, this is what I did, here's the emails talking about what I was supposed to do, and then I explain, they disappeared, or they did not get back to me. There was no feedback, and here is the emails that says, this is when I got a hold of them, this is when they finally got a hold of me, if at all. So them being disgruntled, while it sucks, it's upsetting to you because you wanted to have a good relationship. But either way, you're in the right. And I would say 9 times out of 10, you're going to walk out of there not owing a single thing. And the lawyer's going to go back to the client and go, sorry, buddy. But you have to be prepared like that. And you have to have the confidence to know that you've done everything right. It's very easy, and I've made this mistake in the beginning of my career, to feel bad, feel like you did do something wrong, because you're just, you're taking money from people, and people want the money back, and you know how important $500 is to you. You know it's probably important to them. But you cannot, especially if someone's willing to sever the relationship, the client-contractor relationship, you cannot feel sorry for them. It doesn't work that way. Your relationship's done, sadly. So fend for yourself. 9 times out of 10, when dealing with smaller jobs like that, the client is not prepared to go into small claims court and go, oh, wait a minute, they did do stuff. So if you are prepared, you can probably make it out of there alive. And that's important because you did 2 weeks worth of work, and at $1,000, $500 deposit, months worth of work, 2 weeks go by, you did 2 weeks worth of work, you get $500. Don't do any more. If they're complaining and talking like they want to go to small claims, do not do any more. Tell them, if you would like to go to small claims, then that's how we'll have to do it. Otherwise, let's stick to the plan. By all means, save the deal. Unless you feel like it's a lost cause, this client doesn't know what's going on, and it's just going to be a huge hassle and you can afford to lose them, go for it. But if not, by all means, try to salvage the deal. But if you can't salvage the deal, get your stuff together, get everything documented. Even if you don't have a fancy tablet or something like that, make printouts, whatever you can show. When you walk in there, I don't care if you're in a suit and tie or you're wearing shorts and you're tattooed and pierced up. In my case, you walk in there prepared, confident, and you show them exactly what you want to show them and what they need to see. You're done. And you get your money, or you save your money anyways. You lose a client, you lose the referrals, but at the end of the day, if the client can't hack it, the client can't keep up with what you're doing, then you may have dodged a bullet anyway. And I know sometimes we can't afford that, especially when we're starting out, or even right now. If I lost some of my teaching clients, students I call them. They're not clients. They work a little different. When I'm done teaching for the day, I'm done. My next responsibility is the next week when I speak to them again, and as long as I do my job, as long as I use my brain to help them, I'm good, and then it's over. So I'm in a little bit different situation these days, partially because I got tired of dealing with the client relationship, not because I hate clients. I love most of the clients I've had. I've only had a couple that I could seriously just do without ever seeing again. Like I said, that's a very rare occasion. Usually I'm more disappointed that I've lost that relationship. But so, bottom line, before we move into me taking a breath and you listening to some great hometown Fort Wayne, Indiana low music, that's my own coined term, probably doesn't apply. But before we get into that, I just wanted to clear that up. Deposits, get them. Get contracts, get a written agreement, get a verbal agreement, record the meeting. I don't care. Because here, I'll tell you, I'm going a little over the time that I was allotted, but the reason I get a little passionate and animated about this is because it's, I don't know, a lot of us developers may not be in my position, but to me, I look at what we do, that relationship, the same as I do when dealing with an auto mechanic. I know very little bit about cars. I can drive them great. I used to drive for a living. I love cars. But when it comes to fixing them, I know jack. In fact, that's all I know is a jack. I know how to change my tire, and I really prefer not to change my tire. If I can get somebody else to do it, I will. Now, that may just because I'm obsessive compulsive and I don't like touching dirty things. Not a germaphobe. I just don't like touching things. And if you knew me personally, you'd already know that. But point of the matter is when I have a problem with my car and I take it into an auto mechanic, I'm already on the defensive because I have no idea what they're going to do. They could tell me that my lower left sprocket interface has sprung a leak and it's leaking into the spark plug tube interface and the computer chip that manages. You get what I'm saying. I don't know what they're talking about, and then they're going to tell me it costs $1,000. Red flag. I have no idea, but I know that's a lot of money, and I'm concerned. And really all I can do is hope that when I get that vehicle back, it runs like a champ. So I feel like a lot of times we get put in that classification, especially people who work on computers for a living. People come in there with absolutely no knowledge of how to work a computer. Their computer stops working. They send it in. They charge $100+ for them to look at it. They send it back. And then they're scratching their head, how did it, why did that cost so much? Same with us. People hire us 9 times out of 10 because they don't know anything about what we do. And we have to be very careful about that. Because especially art in general, a lot of the big reason why I got out of graphic design is because of the creative end of it. At least with coding, you can show somebody a big chunk of thousands of lines of code And then, boom, they automatically understand, okay, this is like learning a new language. I don't get it. I understand why I'm paying you for this. With art, people tend to think if I don't like what they did, they need to redo it. And that's true, but not for free. And that's what's going to happen in our next segment. So after this musical break, we will talk about that, provided that Flash doesn't destroy this little interface I have here and I lose my vocal abilities. But this next track, we've heard it before. Good friends of ours, and by ours I mean the bands I've been in. We kind of evolved together, grew up together. We used to play 2-3 shows a weekend together a lot of times. In fact, I'm very excited they're in town. They've been assigned to Alive Records, which is a national label. Before that, they were Hillgrass Blue Billy. I can never pronounce that, Records, and because of that, I have only one album I can play on here. I can't play the Alive Records stuff. But they just put out a new album on in 2012, and they're still, as far as I know, roaming around the world. So it's pretty exciting for us here in small town Fort Wayne, Indiana. But either way, my friends, Left Leg Cruiser, Joe and Bryn. Bryn on the drums, Joe on the vocals and guitar. This band can sound like a full-size band with only 2 members. I love it. This is from their first record, one of their first hits. Big Mama, Left Lane Cruiser. Here you go.
From Hollywood, Pabst Blue Ribbon, finest beers served anywhere, proudly presents...
Time living
And that was Left Lane Cruiser. Local band, not so local anymore, touring around the world, and or at least nation these days. Good friends of mine. Anyway, what we left with was updates and edits. I'll add to that. We talked about deposits and why they're important. Now, with the last topic being project management, these are both kind of lead-ins to why project management is of dire importance, especially for the freelancer and contract worker, but even for up-and-coming firms or firms that just, been around for a while and need a restructure. When I talk about updates and edits, I'm talking about when you're already in the middle of a project and, let's keep that model together, this idea we came up with, the deposit talk, where you have a $1,000 job. Say we're making a website. We're going to charge $1,000, which, yes, I know that's cheap, but it's easy to think of. And we did a $500 deposit, paid up front, non-refundable. And so we've got a month to make this project. Now, a couple weeks in, we start getting some edits or updates. And there's a little bit of a difference between the two. They kind of blur lines there a little bit. But ultimately, when a client comes to you, you've already done a bunch of work, and they go, oh, hey, let's add this. That's an update. Or, oh, hey, I like what you did here, but let's change that. That's an edit. Now, you can use your judgment here. If somebody just says, okay, well, you wrote out some text and they want to change some words around, fine, make that edit. That's your call. But you're also opening the door to more edits. And you want to be very careful because that little line change can turn into changing the whole page. And you need to be prepared to tell the client, look, I know we agreed on $1,000. And now that you're adding things, that $1,000 is going to change. Deposit stays the same, $500. But that end payment, that extra $500 at the end, is now going to go up. And this is a point where you might want to go on hourly, or if you have some sort of structure where you say, a new page or an edit to a page costs this much. These are things you need to have ready to go and be prepared to tell a client, because I know from experience, a lot of times it's really hard, especially if you had to just, really beg and plead your case that $1,000 is what a website's worth, and you had to fight with them on that. Getting them to budge on, paying for these extra edits and updates, it can be really, really tough. And you can be worried that they're going to back out. And again, with the deposit, remember, if they back out, stay true to that deposit. Don't do any more work unless you get an okay from them that either, one, they're going to back out, or two, they're okay with the extra charges. Because otherwise, that deposit, while you still maintain the right to keep it and use it for your income, you're going to now do extra work, which you're not getting paid for. Because now, once that deposit period's over, you're kind of in the grasp of them. That extra $500 at the end, or whatever extra to it, you won't get until they are satisfied. And, if you flip it around, you flip the coin around, you can understand the client's point of view. They don't want to give you money until the job's done. Totally makes sense. But you have to be very careful, because even when you do finish the job and they give you that extra $500 or that $500 owed, you may still have worked another $500 worth of work. So you have to be very careful. And a lot of times this comes into managing your project and using proper project management techniques. So when an update happens, a lot of times, I can definitely relate to this when working in the graphic design field. or not an update, but an edit. If I make a poster for, say, a musical event, I'm going to use an example of a blues event I did. It was a charity event. I had to make a big, huge poster. Now, I'll preface this with this client I did not have any problems with, but it's just at the top of my head. I can see the poster in my room here on the wall, so I'm going to use him as an example. Now, if I made that poster based on the specifications they gave me when we sat down and discussed what they wanted, what look and feel they were going for, and I make it, and to the best of my ability, I follow their instructions, and then they go and say, I like it, but let's try something different. Right there, more money. And I want to make sure you understand that when I say more money, it's not about the money to me. Now, it can be money for you. There's nothing wrong with making money. To me, though, what I've learned is that, I want to make the client happy. So it's not really about the money. I'm not thinking about more money, but what I am thinking about is more time at my office, more time away from my family, my children, my kids. Those are the same thing. Anything, more time away from anything that makes me happy, more time away from playing with my band. That's time. It's no different than the time that a 9-to-5er does. If you were to ask somebody 9 to 5 to work a little extra because you didn't like what they did, they're going to accept or expect compensation unless they're on salary. We're not on salary. We're on hourly. We may have quoted a blanket $1,000 for this specific project, but this goes above and beyond. And you have to make that very clear. Just because you do not approve of what we did, it does not meet the specifications, yet we followed what you said. It costs more money, and you have to make sure they're aware of that. Now, again, if they just want some verbiage changed or whatever, and it's going to take you 15, 20 minutes tops, use your own judgment there. But make sure they understand what you're doing. Tell them that usually this would cost more money, but I'm going to go ahead and do this for you because it's a very minimal thing, but you need to keep in mind that updates like this do cost money. And you need to come up with a scale, a payment scale, or some sort of update scale, edit scale, where either it's, a minimum of a half an hour's worth of pay. So say, it only takes you 20 minutes, but you are going to charge them for a half an hour. Or, so these are important. Now, a lot of this stuff should be talked about in the beginning, and that's where we're going to get into project management. So once we move into that segment, let's discuss what we've just discussed and try to tie it all into some project management techniques. So I'm going to move into our next break so I can breathe and think and figure out what we're going to talk about next. So this next track is my band. Imagine that. But this is the band that's going to be playing with Left Lane Cruiser, who we just heard, on the 15th of February, day after I turned 32, or as I like to call it, 22. We're going to be playing here in a local pub called Berlin. It's a hole-in-the-wall bar. We like it that way because you can put 20 people in there and it looks like 1,000. So anyways, without further ado, this is That Crafty Devil, Pain Loves Company. On this particular track, we don't really play it live. We just recorded it. Unlike most, I'm not playing drums. I'm playing the rhythm guitar, and I helped write some of the lyrics, which I do for most of the acoustic songs. But usually I'm the one playing drums. So I'm going to play that song, Pain Loves Company by That Crafty Devil. Here we go. So that was Pain Loves Company, and that was my band, That Crafty Devil, again playing with Left Lane Cruiser, the internationally famous local band that we heard before me. The topics we've been talking about are clients, managing clients, making sure that you are taken care of with clients. So the first thing we talked about was deposits. Next thing we talked about was updates and edits to jobs while working on the projects. And now we're going to tie it all up with talking about project management. Now, project management is something that I'd venture to say none of us who first get into freelance work have any idea, or we may think we know what we're doing. We have our own project management plan. But there are actual methods out there. There are great methods, especially when it comes to design and development, programming software, whatever. One in particular, one of the most popular one, is the Agile method. And what's cool about the Agile method is it's very, very malleable. You can kind of mold it into what you want it to be, what fits perfectly with what you're doing. But ultimately, a lot of the rules still apply. And I'll start with saying, and this is not even just Agile, but I'll start with the most important thing to do. When you get a client, meet with them, find a whiteboard, find some piece of paper, sit down at a table with them face to face, and learn their business. Because a lot of the times when we're in graphic design, web design, software engineering, whatever, we may not know anything about this business. And it is very important for us to do that. Not a lot of us do this. Now, I did it a lot in the last firm I worked for. I tried as hard as I could to meet with the clients, settling for phone conversations if the client was too far away and it wasn't in the budget for me to fly out. But in some cases, I did drive or fly to the client before we started anything. And I tell you what, that helped substantially. It didn't just help me, but it helped the client show, one, that I'm willing to sit here and learn about their business or their idea, because a lot of times you have two different clients. You have a client who already has a business, or you have a client who has some money set aside and an idea, some big idea. It may be the next big idea or it may be a big flop. But either way, these are people with money behind them, sometimes their life savings, and the passion to get this thing out and get it done right. So when you sit down with them face to face, you sit there and you listen, absorb, and whiteboard, take notes, videotape, record, whatever you need to do of that session. Do not leave there until their idea is your idea now. Not in the theft sense, but in a sense that you can go home, whether it's down the street or 1,000 miles away. Me as being the project manager, the development manager, the lead developer of the last firm I worked for, I had to go home and be the liaison. I had to be the spokesperson for the client, because no offense to the client, but the more they get involved, the more their ideas start changing things. We need to take the solid idea and move with it. So that is very, very important. The more literature, the more documentation, the more sketches and doodles and whatever you can get, the better, because you can go home and you can work with it. It's fresh in your mind. You may not have been a real estate agent when you first met with that real estate agent, but now you are. You are the closest thing. You don't have a license, but man, you can definitely understand what they're doing and what they need. And that is very important. So before you get into the actual project management end of things, that is key. Know what the client wants. And if they don't tell you what they want, which they do a lot, My favorite is when I sit down with a client, even if it's just a mom and pop shop, and I say, okay, well, what are you looking for in a website? How would you like it to look? How would you like it to function? How many pages do you want to have on there? Do you want it to do this or that? And they just kind of look dumbfounded as if, well, you're the expert. What do you want? You're the creative one. And yes, that's true. I'm the creative one. I am the expert. But I still don't know what you want. I am still just me. If you are a real estate agent and you want a website to promote you, but you don't tell me anything about real estate or what you are looking for, whether it's just drawing some boxes and shapes and saying this is where I'd like a menu and I'd like a picture of me here, if you don't give me that information, you're going to end up with alanquant.com. You're going to end up with a website that might have real estate on it, but it's going to be my website, the way I look at it, the way I understand it. And if I don't understand it, you're not going to get what you want. And then that leads to these whole updates and edits and problems down the line where people are asking for deposits back, and we don't want that. So get as much information, even if you have to pry it out of them, even if it risks you annoying the living hell out of them and them walking away. The fact of the matter is if you don't get that information, it's probably not going to get it. You're not going to have a good time with them anyways, and it's probably going to flop. So with that said, let's say we have all of our information. Next step, figuring out a way to manage the project. Now, you don't have to use the agile method, or you can use some sort of bastardization of it. That's up to you. You can mold and mix it however you want, but there are some core concepts here. We have what are called sprints, sometimes called iterations, sometimes called other things. But let's just go with sprints. What a sprint is a period of time, generally, and in our business, usually about a week to 2 weeks worth of time. And during those 2 weeks, we will do X amount of things. And where do we get those X amount of things? We come up with a feature list. We take all this documentation, all this information that we've already gotten from the client, immersed in our head. It is in our head. We are the client now. We can write out this feature list, maybe get a little more input from the client. But we write out this feature list and we assign what normally we call points to it. A lot of time points can be anywhere from 1 to 3 or 10, however you want to do it, based on the difficulty of it. But many times we use that point system for time, whether it's hours, minutes, or days. So a lot of times you'll have like 0.5 days for this, 0.5 days for this, 0.75 days, 1 day, 2 days, whatever. But it gives us an idea of how long this particular feature is going to work. And then next to that, we have usually a priority level. And the priority level can be a combination of what the developer thinks needs to be done first, because as a developer, you know certain things can't be done before other things are done. So that priority is important. But then you also have the priority of the client. You know, maybe the client has to do some media blitz and they would love to just have a splash page open that just has some quick information about what's to come, etc. That might be their priority one. So what we do is we take this mix of priorities, these scorings, these time frames or points involved in how long it takes, and then we decide how long is a sprint going to be? How long is this iteration going to be? Is it going to be 2 weeks? Okay, 2 weeks. So during these 2 weeks, how much time can we allocate? How many points can we fit into 2 weeks? Now, one might think, okay, well, I've got 40 hours a week, so we can fit 40 hours worth of work. No. That is only if you are working by yourself and you have no other jobs, no other clients, no other responsibilities. Then maybe you can do 40 hours a week. And that is the benefit of this agile or just project management in general. So what we do is we look at it. Say we have a team of a couple people. Say we know we have 5 or 6 other clients. We have to figure out our resources. So we think, okay, instead of telling our client that we are going to work nonstop around the clock, 40 hours a week to do this, we then say, okay, each sprint, each 2 weeks, we have 12 points, 12 hours, 12 days, whatever it is, however you've set up your point system, but you set the number 12. Then what you do before you have your very first sprint, which there's a lot of weird terminology in here, agile, sprint, iteration, and then this next one, scrum. You have a scrum meeting before you start the sprint. Say we're going to start the sprint on Monday. We have a scrum meeting on Friday. On Friday, we meet with the development team, the designers, the project managers, and maybe even the clients, whoever is involved, whoever is important. And we go through this feature list. We decide what items on here are first priority. And if one item takes up the whole 12 points that we have set aside, that is all we work on for 2 weeks. Now, if we can find a way to merge in a couple other ones, say one's 6, one's 4, and the other one's 2, well, then we've got 3 items we can work on for these 2 weeks. Now, the rule is we do not have another meeting until that sprint is done, that iteration is done. And then once that's done, that second Friday, we have another scrum. During that scrum, we discuss what we did, any issues with what we did, and then we also open the floor for the client and or the developers, whoever's involved, to suggest changes or things that may have come up that will alter the project. And at that point, we already have it clear with the client that these changes, any changes, even if it's my change as a developer or a change as the client, these add to the project. And by add to the project, I mean time. So what we do, we then add to the feature list, and then we come up with a new plan for what's going to happen in the next sprint, the next 12 points, the next 12 hours, the whatever we do with our point system, and then we work. And again, no communication with the client unless absolutely necessary. We do not want any option for them to come in and change something, edit something. They can do that at the end of the sprint. And this is not to bash the client. It actually keeps the client in a safe place. Because if they get too involved, their brain starts churning. I mean, they're creative persons too, even if they don't want to admit it. And they start thinking of new ideas and great new things we can do. But we need to have complete focus as developers, designers, project managers, etc. And the only way to do that is to keep the client out of it as much as possible so we can do our job. And that's why we keep these iterations down to 1 or 2 weeks usually, because it's enough time to get the job done, but not enough time, not too much time for, good ideas to go, to be in the client's head, and we work for 3 months and then finally the client's like, oh yeah, but I really want to do this. So we don't want that. We want the client to be able to come in and give their input, but not until after we have shown them, not until we have deliverables. Once we're done with the sprint, we have deliverables. We can show the client what we did, what's next, what we think about it, and then they can come in and say, okay, I love what you did. How about changing this? And then that adds to the feature list. It adds to the time that's going to happen later. And this may actually spread a project out a little more, but also at the end of the day, many times it will keep the project maybe not at budget, but at the designated the deadline. We may be able to speed some things up, move some things around, but either way, we get the job done and everybody is on the same page. And it's the worst thing I've ever seen, the most disappointing thing I've ever seen with anywhere I've worked and working on my own. I won't lie, I've made mistakes. But you have to realize that when a client hires you, you are in charge of showing them how things work and keeping them in the know, but also at bay. And if you don't do that, the client will overrun you, and then you won't know what to do about it. So, without extending this too far, point being, get as much information in the beginning. If the client doesn't want to give you information, they give that spiel about you're the creative one, you're the professional, you're the expert. Bullshit. Get as much out of them, even if it's just doodling some squares on a piece of paper, smiley faces, I don't care. Get every single thing you can out of them. Learn their business, learn their product or the product that they're trying to build. Walk out of there knowing almost, if not as much as they did, if not more. And then you can take that project and just build it. You can destroy it, make it amazing. But if you don't know, and the client sees that, if the client keeps seeing these ins where they can come in and put their input in and change what you're doing, what the client doesn't understand, I mean, the client, God bless them, they think they're helping. And they would be if we were doing this on a sprint scrum kind of basis when the time is right. But when they're coming in midway and changing things, all they're doing is screwing up the developer. Developers have a lot on their plate. They have to take nothing and turn it into something. They have to use math, database schematics, all sorts of fun words. We have to do a lot of things. I'll tell you this, one of the last big projects I worked on, I have 8 whiteboards in this room. I had almost all of them full with a database scheme. By the time I was done, I had it drop down to 1. That is not an easy task. Now, to the layman, to the client, if they were watching me, they're going to see me standing with a marker in my mouth, tapping my head, scratching my chin, going, what am I going to do? Erasing things, redrawing things, things like that. But that is what we are getting hired to do. We are problem solvers. We figure out how to make the database efficient and run properly, normalize it. And if those don't know what normalizing means, we need to make sure everything is running the right way. There's no redundancies or anything like that. And that's just the database end of it. When you get into the code, you have to make sure the same things apply. And you also have to document, comment your code, make your code look beautiful. Maybe not to the client, but to anybody else who's going to touch that code. And same with design. So to wrap things up, I didn't get to my Windows 8 Surface Another Look segment. I'll just note that I'm getting used to Windows 8 on my touchscreen computer. I will never put it on my main computer. In fact, when I go buy a new computer here in a couple of weeks, because mine is ancient, I will do whatever I can to make sure Windows 7 is still on it, because it's just not good for production. Now, what I'm seeing is that Windows 7 is probably going to become the new Windows XP. People are going to hold on to this thing for dear life. They're going to keep this thing up. They're going to keep using it. Windows 8 will be on all the new fancy touchscreen computers, the ones you can pick up and move around from workstation to workstation, the tablets, whatever, the phones. Microsoft did a smart thing. They're hopefully going to get into the market. But with that said, I don't have a lot of time for that. So I'm going to end the show with part 1 of Exterminate All Rational Thought. Again, a local musician here from Fort Wayne, Indiana. They do post-hardcore music, which I am a fan of, along with the other music we played. My ranges are very versatile. But this is Exterminate All Rational Thought. They hail from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and here they are closing out the show.